Good morning. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. It is still morning time and I am not yet awake. Please join us in singing the opening hymn, number 347, Gather the Spirit, found in our gray hymnal. Affirmation of faith found in the order of service, followed by the Doxology. Love is the doctrine of our church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other.
there is so much to learn about the fascinating little creatures known as naked mole rats. But for this story, you'll need to know 3 things. 1, they're a little bit rat. 2, they're a little bit mole. And 3, they're all naked. Well, they were, with one exception. Wilbur, the naked mole rat who liked to get dressed. When the other naked mole rats saw him, they said,
"Ew, yuck, what are you doing?"
I like clothes. When I get dressed, I can be fancy, or I can be funny, or I can be cool, or I can be an astronaut.
When the others heard that, they said,
"Ew, yuck. If you like clothes so much, then why don't you open a store or something?"
Naked mole rats can be very sarcastic. But Wilbur thought this was a great idea.
That's a great idea.
The other mole rats did not. They brought Wilbur to a portrait of Grandpa, the oldest, greatest, and most naked mole rat ever.
Look at that picture. Look at that heroic face.
Look at his regal bearing. Look at his total lack of clothing.
Grandpa does look heroic. Grandpa does look regal.
But he would also look heroic and regal in a casual shirt, maybe some summer slacks.
Ugh, don't you get it?
Naked mole rats don't wear clothes!
Why not?
Something had to be done. The naked mole rats marched right to Grandpa and told him all about Wilbur. And then he asked,
"Why not?"
Grandpa was very wise. He thought seriously about everything he had heard. Then he thought some more. Finally, he said in a heroic, regal voice,
"Gather the colony, I shall make a proclamation."
When Wilbur heard about Grandpa's proclamation, he knew it was serious. But he had no idea what to wear. In the end, Wilbur decided to play it safe. Maybe not safe enough. The others were so busy looking at Wilbur's socks that no one noticed Grandpa enter until he cleared his throat and proclaimed,
"Fellow naked mole rats, I had never worn clothes until I heard Wilbur's simple question. Why not? And why not indeed? Do clothes hurt anyone? No. Are they fun? Well, they may not be fun for everyone, but this old naked mole rat wishes he had gotten dressed earlier."
Then Grandpa complimented Wilbur on his socks.
"You look strapping in those, young man."
As fast as his legs could take him, Wilbur rushed home, put on his favorite outfit, and dashed back. When he returned, Wilbur discovered that he was not alone. Much has been said about that day, but for this story, you only need to know 3 things. 1, some of the mole rats were naked. 2, some of the mole rats were clothed. And 3, everyone had a great time. No exceptions.
After that wonderful story, it is now time for the children to go ahead and head to their classes. So, would you please join me in singing Go Now in Peace as we usher them into peace?
Good morning. I want to welcome you here to First Unitarian Church of Dallas, a proudly progressive religious community here in the heart of Dallas since 1899. I'm Reverend Aaron White, and today I am happy to welcome you to Youth Sunday, which is a Sunday in our church year in which we give almost every bit of the service to our youth group, the high school teenagers here in our congregation who will lead us in worship. They call us to worship, they play the music that you hear, they lead us in prayer, they preach, they teach stories for children. This is a Sunday that's evidence of our belief that what is holy is not only to be found in one book or one person, certainly not one minister. And so we give the pulpit away in an act of respect today to our youth group and listen to what they have to tell us about life and how to make it better for all here on earth. We're glad that you have joined us here for this Sunday. Unitarian Universalism, for those of you who are visitors here with us today, start off by thinking of us as the most progressive Protestant church you've ever been to. And we'll get more detailed from that. Basically, we believe that people experience God in many ways, that all people deserve love and justice without exception, and that religion isn't about what happens when you die, but rather how we build heaven on earth together right here and right now. And if you want to be a part of this religious community, if you've been around for some time and feel like this is home, I would encourage you to join our congregation, become a member. You can talk to me afterward. You can visit our Inquirers class every week, which happens during this hour, 11:30 in the parlor, just an open door on this side of the fellowship hall. It's a great way to learn a little bit more about who we are. I will encourage you to stick around afterward and greet the youth who are leading our service today. I wasn't in the first service, but I hear it's a great one, and we're looking forward to a lot. Looking ahead in the next week, there are a couple of things to pay attention to. This coming weekend, we're going to have our Clothes Encounters clothing sale led by our women's alliances here. It's an opportunity to get something new from things that people have donated in the past, and it all goes to charity causes. It'll be happening next week here on campus. Also, on Saturday, we have a workshop on aging well and end-of-life conversations. So if today's Youth Sunday, you can explore the other side of what it means to be alive at any age next Saturday. There'll be topics on how do you explain to your friends and family what you want at the end of your life? How do you plan your legacy, estate gifts to your family or to your church? What do you want your memorial service to look like? What do you want your friends and family to know about what mattered deeply to you? That's the kind of workshop that's going to be held here on Saturday. You can sign up for it on the homepage of our website, and there is information in your order of service. The most important thing that we can say today is welcome. We're glad you're here, whoever you are and whomever you love. We hope that you find in the next hour that this feels like home for you. Welcome. Part of our service today is hearing from a member of our youth group about the impact that this church has had on her life. And so before we take our offering today, I want to invite Mila Rolston to the pulpit to explain to us her testimonial and a little bit about this church and her experience of it.
Good morning. My name is Mila Rolston, and today I have the pleasure of telling you what the YRUU youth group and the church mean to me. I've been going to our church for 10 years, but the year where I really started to become engaged in my Sunday school class was in 9th grade, the coming of age year. At the end of the year, we went on the Boston Heritage trip, which helped teach me the history of our faith. On the trip, we visited Walden Pond, where Henry David Thoreau lived for 2 years and wrote Walden. We study Thoreau in our classrooms today. We worshiped at the historical King's Chapel, which has been Unitarian since 1785. We marched in the Boston Pride Parade, joining together with other members of the LGBTQA community who are fighting for equality. We did all of this and so much more. The exploration of our faith and values during this Boston trip and in the coming of age class in 9th grade gave me a good foundation for the YRUU class. YRUU is short for Young Religious Unitarian Universalists. We are a youth-driven and involved group. The worships are planned by our youth worship coordinator, who's elected by the class at the beginning of the year. They usually begin worship with a chosen passage, which is then followed by discussion questions. This encourages the youth to dive deeper into the subject and have a collaborative exploration of different viewpoints about the topic. These circle worships let us hear opinions that are different than our own and engage with one another. This process helps us grow and bond with one another since we are searching for our own truths together. The words, "Service is our prayer," found in our affirmation, takes root in the YRUU class, and that continues to grow throughout our lives. I've done service work in my years prior to this class, but YRUU is where we, the youth, emerge as leaders and actively involve ourselves in service work. For example, we've organized canned food drives and run clothing drives for North Dallas Shared Ministries. We do this because we see the value and importance of serving not only our community here at church and in the Dallas area, but places miles away as well. This practice of serving others who live in different communities is put at the forefront when we go on our week-long service trips in the summer. My sophomore year, the service trip was to Heifer Ranch in Arkansas. Everyone had the opportunity to participate in different kinds of service work around the ranch. We stepped out of our comfort zones and helped serve the community. My favorite memories of service work at Heifer were of enjoying the company of my classmates while filling potholes on the road and of milking a tenacious goat named Dottie. Another memorable part of Heifer was the global village, where you're assigned to a country and must work together with other countries to make food and last through the night. This exercise helped our teamwork and cooperation skills, as well as problem solving. There's also a special bond that comes from spending the night with 8 other people in a yurt while your youth advisor sings you to sleep. Last year, we traveled to the mountain retreat in North Carolina. This picturesque landscape with mountains and open skies was the perfect place for us to connect spiritually with one another and serve the community around us. The service work at the mountain was very involved and strengthened the bonds between members of the class. Every morning, we would walk down the mountain to the campsite and were split off into groups to do work. Some of the work I did was cutting down weeds on a dam, digging holes for monkey bars, and shoveling gravel to fill in a French drain. These projects were very challenging, so working together in groups helped build morale. It also gave us time to get to know one another and work together to overcome challenges, letting you see the best in your classmates. This year, the YRUU class will be traveling to YRUU, which is a retreat and camp for the service trip. The YRUU group has been going to YRUU since 2008 to perform service work. You can still see the impact earlier classes left behind on their service trips. This year, we'll be working to get the camp prepared and ready for younger kids to come later in the month and experience their summer camp. Service projects in the past have been gardening, carpentry, maintenance, and other things of that nature. The contributions you make today go directly to helping members of the YRUU and COA classes go on the service trip and Boston Heritage trip. We share the plate collection to ensure that every youth who wants to participate is able to, thanks to the scholarships your donations provide. These trips are life-changing experiences that everyone should have the opportunity to go on. They have strengthened my love for service work and deepened my bonds with my church, this faith, and with my fellow youth. I've made memories and friends on these service trips that I will carry with me through my entire life. The values learned on this year's service trip will be remembered and will continue our dedication to serving others. Please give generously to support the youth. If you plan to be giving via text, the instructions will be on the screen. The offering will now be given and received.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Connor, for that lovely offertory. That was wonderful. I wish I could play piano like that, or play piano at all. Okay, so if someone asks you who you are, what would you say? Not as simple a question as it may seem. You may state your name first. What would come next? Your ethnic or cultural background? Next. Your occupation? Next. Your relationship status? Next. A faith association? Next. Aspects of your personality or favorite activities. One simple question can illuminate how literate we are about ourselves. If we have an answer, it indicates what we identify with. Our identity, our individuality, however, is elusive. We live in a culture of conformity. To know ourselves, we must engage ourselves. We must ask questions. If you have faith in a particular theology or set of convictions, ask yourself how you came to these beliefs and why. Why do you still hold them? Upbringing? Group identity? Comfort? Peel away the layers of the onion even further and come to an understanding of what the word belief means to you. Loyalty, devotion, security. Do not be afraid of self-examination. This is the gate to self-revelation. We arrive in life in mystery, and when we depart this life, we disappear into mystery. In every age, human beings choose to react to life by trying to solve it. If your religion isn't helping you to know yourself, it isn't helping you to know your God.
Let us pray. God of many names and mystery beyond all our naming, let us be grateful for this community coming together today to celebrate our youth and the youthfulness that resides in all of us, and for the love that we bring each other. We are grateful for the safety of our community, for our health and happiness, for a space of quiet reflection. Remind us today of our temporariness. Remind us to love those we are with. Remind us to be present and open to the world around us. Help us to remember to put in our prayers today members of our church who've asked for our care. We hold Kevin Bolton and his family as they mourn the death of Kevin's uncle, Kim Swain, whose father Richard died. We hold Shauna Black's family in our hearts as they grieve and aid family, Jenny Wheel and her family as they mourn the death of her mother, the Lathams and Phyllis Guest recovering from illness. At this time, let us take a moment to be still with ourselves and reflect on this crucial moment. Let us remember what is really important in our lives. If you'd like to join me in a moment of silence. We pray in the names of all those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten. Amen.
We will now sing When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. The words are going to be up on the screens.
Trust seated.
One of my absolute favorite pieces of media to consume is comic books. Anyone who has spoken to me ever probably knows this, as I almost always, either accidentally or intentionally, steer conversations into whatever Marvel and DC comics are doing at this point. I'd like to do that here today and talk about one of the most progressive things that I have seen in a comic book recently and how happy I am to have seen it. It's a story of transformation, and it's very detailed and wordy, but stick with me. Also, my comic book artist dad is in the audience now, so no pressure. This is the story of one Mark Millar. He is a well-known creator whose works are constantly adapted into television and film. For example, The Wanted and Kingsman: The Secret Service were both his comics. His books have also indirectly inspired films. A large amount of the plot of the first Avengers movie is inspired by his reboot of the team and the Ultimates. What almost all of these adaptations leave out, however, is the more controversial content the original works typically include. The comic book Wanted features a main character who is unlikable in the extreme. The Ultimates takes Captain America, a literal walking icon of American culture, and turns him into a slack-jawed jerk. Obviously, this material was and still is met with a pretty mixed to lukewarm reception. Millar's work from the early 2000s is now derided for being unnecessarily mean-spirited towards both the superheroics it often satirizes and to the comic book readers themselves, and they insinuate that superheroes are a childish power fantasy rather than an actual vehicle of delivering a message. But Millar's books were always audacious and over-the-top enough to sell well, and they do offer genuine fun and insight underneath the bizarre toilet humor. All of this in mind, it seemed that Mark Millar was destined to continue using this signature style through his work in the 2010s. But then something unexpected happened. In 2013, Mark Millar went to see the newest depiction of Superman on the big screen in Man of Steel, directed by Zack Snyder. Anyone who has seen Man of Steel knows where this is going. He walked out of the theater appalled by the cynical take on Superman the film presented. It was a universe where the Man of Steel is willing to hurt people just to take down the villain, General Zod. The experience was so emotionally taxing, in fact, that Millar later described it as traumatizing in a blog post. The film evidently made him reevaluate his own body of work and realize the reductionist ideology his writing often espoused. Millar finally had the same bad taste in his mouth as his readers. So Millar continued writing, but this time things were different. Millar's works are no longer as soul-crushing and cynical as they once were. His series Huck arguably presents a better imagining of classic Superman than most of DC Comics' recent output. He's reversed the male-dominated storylines that often dominate the genre with two of his works, Empress and Reborn, which both feature powerful female protagonists. His latest book, a reboot of something he made a decade ago, which I'm not allowed to say the title of because it's a bad word, features a black woman as the superhero as opposed to the original's white male protagonist. Millar's works are, for once, idealistic. They're even optimistic. Now, that may sound like a lot of detail, but I wanted to share it all so you'd understand. This is a truly miraculous change for the better. Someone whose works once encouraged ignorance now writes some of the most forward-thinking mainstream comics out there. If that's not progressive, I don't know what is. Furthermore, this change is recent and did not come overnight. I can only assume that such a change was difficult for Millar. After all, his cynicism, his ignorance was his brand for a long period of time. So to change gears like he did must have been a decision made with a lot of anxiety. He risked his reputation and his career on the basic task of bringing some hope into the world. He wasn't forced to do it either, which makes it even more remarkable. After all, it's hard to be progressive without just being told to. Millar made this change all on his own, and I think that that is beautiful. But what does this all mean for us? I think it's a simple message, and it's one we all need to hear. Progress is not instantaneous. Someone's mind doesn't change overnight, it has to change slowly. It has to change as they are educated until a tipping point finally completes the change. I'll fully admit that I used to be like Mark Millar, that I thought talking about the failure of the old was more important than the accomplishments of the new. But then something clicked, and I'm now proud to say that I'm progressive and optimistic. We all have that potential, the potential to focus on the good in the world, somewhere within us, and it can be found no matter how deep it's buried. So today, I challenge all of you to be more like Mark Millar. Find your progressiveness.
It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us, only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Ooh, imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion do. Imagine all the people living a life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of men. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
When I was in 9th grade here at church, in a class now called Odyssey, my end of the class project was a spoken paper about a line from our church's Affirmation, to seek knowledge in freedom. Seeing as that was how I officially entered the church, it seems appropriate to circle back to it now that I'm a senior and inching ever closer to departing both YRUU and this church. For now, anyways. That paper I wrote about the line, to seek knowledge and freedom, I think it was what spurred me down the path of valuing personal growth above pretty much everything else. It made me want to get better at the things I was interested in. It's why I became a copy editor for my school's newspaper. It's why I participated in this year's UIL Prose Interpretation Contest. It's probably why I decided to accept the position of Youth Adult Committee President in the first place. Putting myself through those things made me better at writing, speaking, and leadership, respectively. But doing all that stuff, especially in 1 year, can be a little stressful. And one of the side effects of stress is that it makes you grow up a little faster than you probably should. Let me explain. Personal development is incredibly important. Growing as a person is one of the most wonderful things that can happen to a human being. Cultivating maturity is undeniably something to take pride in. But maturity itself, like all things, can be harmful in the wrong dosage. Everybody needs to be a kid sometimes, and too much maturity can make you feel guilty for that need. To demonstrate this, I will reference my spring break trip this year. I went up to visit the University of Missouri, which I will be attending next semester. The thing is, I went with my parents. So you have me in college visit mode trying to act like the world's most desirable student. Someone mature, no doubt. And my parents are making wisecracks in front of tour guides and lovingly embarrassing me in front of university officials. And see, I'm framing that like it's a bad thing, but it really isn't. That's the one who worried that a single wrong word could somehow get me deferred, the mature me talking. And that person is not fun to be full time. And thankfully on that trip I wasn't. When we got back to our hotel room after our numerous visits, the only thing I wanted to do was play Pokemon, something which I've quite literally been doing since I was 5. Maturity isn't always good, and immaturity isn't always bad. They're situationally appropriate. Life may not be all sunshine and rainbows, but it isn't all filing cabinets and tax returns either. And I think that's how this ties into our theme of still progressive, still here. Or still here, still progressive, my bad. As we advance ideologically and try our best to become better and better people, it's easy to get swept up in the idea that we constantly have to be on our toes and only ever focus on progression and basically never have fun ever. And that is the kind of harmful mindset that leads into regression, not growth. Our children's story that we did today was a great example of this, actually. Wilbur putting on clothes wasn't hurting anybody. It's just what he enjoys. And once he learns to loosen up and embrace what he likes to do, he inspires many of his naked mole rat cohorts to do the same. Because he had the bravery to go against the grain, his society wound up happier for it. And this can extend to the most tense adult situations, which often need little more than a pinch of humor to shake them up and boost morale. A joke is a powerful tool, and no one is more privy to it than someone in the mind of a child. And note that I said that Wilbur putting on clothes isn't harmful to anyone, because the point of this isn't to regress, it's to make it easier to progress. And hurting people is entirely counterintuitive to that goal. Guilt is a burden. It makes it harder to grow. And hurting people especially doesn't help you if you're trying to mature into a more loving person, which I believe all YRUUs are. The good kind of letting loose makes it easier to grow. The point is to make it easier to be the best version of yourself. And it's easiest when you're doing what you love. The more love in your life, the more love you have to spread around. And as it turns out, I got pretty lucky with that. Being YRUU president wound up being something that I love to do, enough that I find myself picking up habits from it. One presidential duty that I assigned myself is issuing time reminders during class discussions. Our worships pretty regularly are just everyone talking about a topic. And they're always the last thing we do before we adjourn. So as you use, I'm sure a lot of you can see the conflict there. So I try to make sure to give 10 and 5-minute warnings before we go so we can get what we need to say out. And then the other day in my newspaper class, I found myself doing pretty much the same thing when we were talking about current events. It was easy, almost involuntary to do because I loved doing it. I'm going to share with you the best piece of advice that I ever received. It came from my newspaper's editor-in-chief last year. You do better on a test when you get a night's sleep before rather than staying up all night cramming. You get most places faster by taking breaks rather than recklessly marching on. And so, as the outgoing president of the youth group, consider this an executive order. I challenge all of you to take a load off. And while you're working hard at not working, do a little bit of introspection. Make sure that you're happy. As our affirmation says, the best time to seek knowledge is when you're in freedom. Thank you.
Before we close out the service, the youth would like to recognize everyone who helped with this service, our youth advisors, staff of the church, and our ministers as well. Each Sunday together, we end our time with a song. We'd like to teach it to you now. The words are pretty simple, and many of you will remember it from years past. The words are, and if you repeat after me, good friends, good friends.
Good friends, good friends.
Let me tell you how I feel.
Let me tell you how I feel.
You have given me a treasure.
You have given me a treasure.
I love you so.
I love you so.
So we will sing it to you once, then you will join us in unison once, then we will do a 3-part round twice. That will be section 1, this will be section 2, that will be section 3. Okay?
Good friends, good friends, let me tell you how I feel. You have given me a treasure. I love you so. Good friends, let me tell you how I feel. You have given me a treasure. I love you so. Good friends, good
May the light around us guide our footsteps and hold us fast to the best and most righteous that we seek. May the darkness around us nurture our dreams and give us rest so that we may give ourselves to the work of the world. Let us seek to remember the wholeness of our lives, the weaving of light and shadow in this great and astonishing dance in which we move. Amen.